just finished up the series, The 3 Lies of Emotional Abuse. If you didn't listen to it, please go back and check it out. There's some really good stuff that we talked about. So tonight, we will be talking about what it means to be vulnerable in a relationship. Here are some of the random thoughts of authenticity and vulnerability. There are a ton of words in the English language that have layers of meaning. I think the authenticity and vulnerability are a couple of those words. Depending on how you use them or how you are thinking about them, they could mean a couple of different things. Authenticity and vulnerability are often used in terms of leadership coaching, personal growth and development, and of course to talk about what's going on in the relationship. That a lot of the times they are talked about in negative terms, like a scary thing. But to personally grow and to be an effective leader and to build deep relationships, you have to consider the elements of authenticity, which looks at what is real, what has substance, what can be built upon, what is not a facade that could slip away at any moment. And in the context of vulnerability, meaning if this is really out there, it is both the aspects of what is pure and raw, that vulnerability, but also that exposure. It is the fear of exposure, so vulnerable in the context that is the real thing. There's nothing hiding, nothing else around it, but also the exposure then that could mean something devastating. So you have to look at all of the nuances, but again, my hope is that we can talk about this in a way that you can begin to see that these things are a strength, a benefit, can be used to deepen who you are and strengthen your relationships rather than be a bad thing. We often equate authenticity and vulnerability to be real is to be exposed and therefore potentially unsafe. For example, you might believe that to share your real feelings or thoughts allows others then to be against you or to take them away. Them meaning this is a piece of you, this is a part of you, your feeling or your thoughts. So take them away by arguing to death or demeaning or dismissing you or punishing you in some way because you are not conforming to them and their thinking. In actuality, someone rejecting your authentic self isn't destroying that self unless you give them the power to do so. But it is destroying or diminishing or definitely making small, breaking something about the relationship. And there is a difference. Your identity isn't the identity of the relationship, even though we tend to connect those two things together as well. The vulnerability in this case isn't you. It is the relationship, the depth of the relationship. But we often disregard that distinction and internalize other behavior as a definition of our personhood, which implies that we don't authentically know our own selves because we give others the power to decide and define us, to decide for us who we are, and then to define us by how they treat us. And then we hide our authentic self because we cannot handle the exposure that leaves us vulnerable to that broken connection. Again, the distinction being when we let the vulnerability be that we can't lose this relationship, for example, we tend to minimize our own authenticity, thinking if we can hide ourselves, we are actually holding on to something, to which I could say at the end of the day, that something you are holding on to is not deep. There might be some realness to it, but it will not be deep because you are not deeply known for who you truly are. So, have you been true to your own self? Does your spouse know who you truly are? Are you scared to be vulnerable